So I think tactically there's going to be a renaissance of sorts with a front two, using two quick, physically and aerially dominant strikers who are also clinical finishers and can essentially create their own chances. And so in this video I'm going to be telling you why I think Manchester United should be considering dedicating a large proportion of their summer budget to bringing in both Gyokeres and Osimhen if it is possible for a combined 120 to 130 million pounds, which should be doable if we are getting 25 million pounds from the Sancho deal, 40 million for Rashford, maybe 20 million to 25 million for Antony, at least 35 million pounds with Højlund with some sell-on clauses as well in both Antony and Højlund's contracts, and then you've even got Garnacho there for 60 million pounds as well. So in terms of the transfer fee and the salary, you should be able to afford it if you do sell right. And there are two very specific reasons as to why I would want both Osimhen and Gyokeres in the same side. But before I come on to that, if you do want to pick up any cheap, good quality current season or retro jerseys, then head over to dragonjersey.com. They've got a variety of different Manchester United jerseys from across the years, going from this current season all the way back to the early 90s. Now this AIG long sleeve home shirt from the 2006-2007 season is probably my favourite Manchester United shirt of all time. As soon as I see it I think of Ronaldo and how that was his real first season where he became elite. But you can check out their other retro jerseys as well. They've got Real Madrid, Barcelona, as well as the international sides as well, and if you use code Atlantis at checkout you will get a 10% discount for a limited time. Depending on where you live, you can get free shipping and 7-day delivery, but if you do want to check before you buy, you can get in touch with them through their WhatsApp or their email, which are both on the site. So if you do want to check them out after the video, I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section, and make sure you use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. So the first reason as to why I would want Gyokeres and Osimhen playing together in what would be more of a 5-3-2 shape is because in the build-up phase against an aggressive man-to-man press, we could isolate the front two against the opposition's centre-backs on the halfway line, maximising their space by using the opposition's man-to-man press to drag their midfield and full-backs high, drawing them into United's defensive third and out of the middle third. And so from a goal kick or just Onana having settled possession inside his own box, United will line up in what resembles a 5-4-2 on paper, if you are factoring in the keeper, which I do think you should do in the build-up phase because he is essentially an outfield player, and this is slightly different to the current 5-3-3 that we currently see Amorim sides set up in the build-up phase, just exchanging the two interior forwards wide of the centre forward for an extra central midfielder and a front two. Now usually opposition sides are going to press United in a narrow 4-4-2 if they are going aggressive, and so having the wing back sitting very deep on the flanks is going to allow them to receive the ball as open as possible, allowing them to then take the ball in their stride rather than having to turn 90 degrees. Kind of like how rugby players receive the ball, but they're not fully behind them, they're kind of just to the side, just because I think this puts them in a more optimal position to receive the ball from one of the two wide centre-backs. So the central centre-back in this example, or it could also be one of the wide centre-backs if it is stylistically applicable depending on who is in the back three, pushes up to the edge of the box alongside one of the central midfielders in the midfield double pivot. I've labelled this player as a regista just to emphasise that this player should be the most technically capable of the three central midfielders in regards to their press resistance, playing out of pressure, and their creative direct passes forward as well. So for United you probably want the right sided centre back, either Mazraoui or Dalot for example, pushing up to the second possession line with the central centre back Maguire, De Ligt or even Euro dropping to the right side of the back three with Onana and the left sided centre back. But if Amorim does still want to use a central centre back on the edge of the box, then I guess you could use Euro there, with the two wider central midfielders sitting inside the widths of the box, but still slightly wider than the double pivot on the edge. Now from here, because the opposition is man-to-man pressing, players are going to have designated players on United's second possession line that they are instructed to follow. And so if you have someone, either one of the wide central midfielders like Kone, Ugarte, Mainu, or one of Dalot or Mazraoui sitting here, when the ball does go out to the wide centre-back on their side, this can be their trigger to make a deeper and wider movement, closer to the right wing back, which next season should be Ahmad most of the time, which will work to drag the opposition player on their back. Most likely it's going to be the left back higher up the pitch, creating more space for one of the front two to start to drift over across into that right sided channel. Now from here, United have a number of different ways they can progress the ball forward and beat the press, with Osimhen and Gyokeres specialising in two different methods. If Gyokeres is a centre forward on that side when United are building out, then he can drop into a deeper and more central position behind the opposition's midfield line. They will have been dragged high, but unlike Xerxes, Gyokeres has the physicality to be able to receive a direct ball, not only into his feet but also into his thigh, chest or head, and be able to get the ball under control and link play efficiently. See, a fundamental for a highly coordinated, effective, automated pattern of play should be that there is a balance of movement. Players moving towards the ball looking to drag opposition players high, whilst you then have other players running forward in order to take advantage of that space ahead. And so as the wide central midfielder and the central centre back shift across on that side, reducing the distance between themselves and the wide centre back and wing back on that side, not just to create space ahead but also to offer shorter passing options, whilst a more creative central midfielder, which I think is a role that Bruno Fernandes would be perfect for, can now make a movement ahead of their deeper movement. Looking to get into a position to receive a layoff from the centre forward, Gyokeres would be ideal, where from the ball can now be laid off either into Bruno or the right wing back or central midfielder on that side if they are able to spin or accelerate past their markers to get goal side. The central midfielder on the far side now has to come across into a more central position in order to provide the defensive security for Bruno to move out of that zone, which would give United 4 players in that deeper central area, all in close proximity, who can condense if the ball is lost and the opposition look to orchestrate a direct counter-attack, stopping them being able to take advantage of the space created with United pushing players ahead of the ball. Now, the 2 central midfielders either side of Bruno would perform a role that is kind of what Football Manager describes a Carrilero as, and I did do a video on Sekou Kone in that particular role, so if you do want to check it out, I will leave it in the eye above. But basically, these players should perform the same role that Gattuso and Seedorf did in Ancelotti's Diamond midfield in the mid-2000s, with Kaka and Pirlo being the more creative players at the top and at the bottom of the diamond. And these roles are also similar to what we saw from Seedorf and Edgar Davids during the 94-95 season when they won the Champions League in Louis van Gaal's highly original 3-4-3 diamond system that was fluidly able to move between a back three in possession with Frank Rijkaard stepping forward as a libero and the fullbacks holding narrow and deep positions in a back three, with Edgar Davids and Seedorf the central midfielders ahead, holding slightly wider and deeper positions, in order to provide the defensive security to allow the 2 wingers Marc Overmars and Fernini George to push further forward as high as possible as natural wingers. In United's setup, these players are kind of like ball winners, who are also there to aid the build-up, being players who can knit short passing into play together, using 1 and 2 touch bounce passes in their layoffs, but also their deeper movements towards the ball can be used to create space ahead, simultaneously holding a narrow position covering the centre in the rest defence, just in case possession is lost. Agate, Sekou Kone, Mainu, or even Dalot or Mazraoui, if they were shifted up from right-sided centre-back, could all play this kind of water carrier role in the build-up phase, in the second possession line alongside the other 2 central midfielders and Bruno Fernandes, with the 2 centre forwards ahead and now a foundation to allow the wing backs to race further forward, giving them more freedom to push further forward down the flanks in the middle third, because you've now got 2 holding midfielders and a midfield 3 behind them. And this would also provide the defensive security for the wing back on the far side to make what I call a bishop run, as similar to the chess piece when there is space ahead. Either Dorgu or someone else who I'm going to suggest as a new signing come the summer in just a minute, as the left wing back driving forward into the space on the far side, but at a diagonal angle so that the minimum width of Amorim's attack is narrower as they get into the middle and the final third, taking these players closer to goal as they get further up the pitch, aiding them in the likeliness of them being able to get into a high value goal scoring or a goal creating position. And so in the build up phase you can essentially compartmentalise the pitch into 3 main segments in this particular phase of play: the forward line, the far side and the main area, which in this example is going to be over to the right side. Now, if Amorim is going to build a Champions League level side, United need variety in their play, which I think Gyokeres and Osimhen will both provide, with Osimhen being one of the best strikers in the world when it comes to winning those battles against a centre-back in the channel, when receiving a long ball on the halfway line, with his physicality, pace, athleticism and technical ability allowing him to run the channels and not just offer a run, but also either link play behind or drive the ball down the channels, looking to progress the ball into the final third and then looking to either create a goal scoring opportunity or set up a chance for someone in the middle. Now, from a technical point of view, Gyokeres is even more complete than Osimhen, and so he's highly effective when he's spinning into the channel and able to isolate the defender in a 1v1 in a channel just like Osimhen, because like the Nigerian, the Swede has the dribbling ability, physicality and pace to be able to drive the ball on his own into a shooting or a chance creating position. But Gyokeres also possesses the ability to drop towards the ball and link play with his feet as well. And so with Gyokeres on that side, United have 2 options, as they could leave Gyokeres high on that side, trying to find him with a more direct ball into the channel, with the wing back once again looking to drive forward in order to eventually create a front three higher up the pitch, coming round the back post. And this is where having two physically and athletically dominant centre forwards like Osimhen and Gyokeres comes into play, as well as wing backs like Ahmad and Dorgu who have the athleticism to provide an option on the far side. And so this is going to leave teams incredibly vulnerable to direct passes when they do look to man press aggressively. Because if you're going to give Gyokeres or Osimhen 9 or 10 long passes from deep throughout a game, whilst leaving them 2v2 on the halfway line in that amount of space, you'd back at least one of them to be able to create a goal on their own, or at least a few high value chances. But with Gyokeres and Osimhen it's a win-win, because even if the opposition does look to nullify this strategy by dropping off and keeping more players around Osimhen and Gyokeres and closing off that space, this would also play into Ruben Amorim's hands, as United can now get out of the defensive third, gradually pushing the opposition back into the final third, where from with Gyokeres and Osimhen inside of the box, and crossers like Ahmad and Bruno from the right, and Bruno when he drifts over to the left side, and either Dorgu or the player I'm about to mention as a potential left wing back signing, you should have more than enough quality to create high value aerial chances from crossing positions. Now before I tell you about the signing that I think would be a complementary signing to Gyokeres and Osimhen in the summer, a quick reminder, you can check out some of my Patreon articles. You can either get a 7-day free trial for the article tier, or sign up for the in-game Instagram group chat and get that included as well. I will leave it linked in all the usual places, the iBath description, comment section, and on the end screen after the video. So I think Dwight McNeil could be a good option as an alternative to either Dorgu or Ahmad on either flank, as he's already shown at Everton that he's capable of playing off either side, is one of the best crossers in the league, especially when it comes from deeper positions, whilst also being incredibly creative overall, as seen as when compared against all other attacking midfielders and wingers in the Premier League this season. He's ranking in the mid 90th percentiles for his crosses and his passes into the penalty area, his expected assists and his key passes, as well as the 84th percentile for his XG assisted. And the fact he ranks in the top 1% for the volume of crosses he completes in the Premier League as well, shows just how effective he can be from crossing positions. Combine this with him having a high successful take-on percentage, relatively good take-on metrics and carries into the final third, alongside him also definitely having the work rate, discipline and versatility to adjust to being used as a wing-back. And I think Dwight McNeil, considering he was signed by Everton 3 seasons ago for between 15 to 20 million pounds, and has just 2 years left on his contract, and is only 25, I think he could be one of the bargains of the summer. If United could get him for between 30 to 35 million pounds, as he could play on the right or the left and would be perfect to play as a wing back against deeper defensive blocks who drop off and allow United up the pitch, giving United more of the ball in the final third, where from McNeil's in-swinging or out-swinging crosses, along with Osimhen and Gyokeres' movement, aerial ability and finishing, should allow United to create significantly more chances when sides do look to sit deep and close off the space in behind. So in build-up, Gyokeres and Osimhen would provide a threat if the opposition look to press aggressively, but if they drop off, the threat is just as dangerous inside their own box, which United could easily create by looking to use quick switches of play, having dragged the opposition over to one side, and then using Bruno Fernandes or someone else to switch play with a direct long pass out to the wing back on the other side, who can then carry the ball forward into a crossing position. So what do you think of Gyokeres and Osimhen in United's front two? And would it be worth the 120 to 130 million pounds, plus maybe 20 million pounds in salary combined? I think it would, just because of how I think their aerial, physical and athletic dominance up top would allow United to play more direct long balls and crosses. And despite it being quite expensive for two players, I think the actual value for money in terms of the quality you're getting is actually very high despite the fees. So thank you for watching. If you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, I'll leave the link to Dragon Jersey in the description and comment section, and you can use code Alandis at checkout for a discount. And my Patreon will also be left on the end screen now as well, in case you do want to sign up to check out my articles or sign up to the in-game Instagram group chat.